I will call to order the May 6th, 2021 regular meeting of the Hendersonville City Council. We begin our meetings with a silent invocation for people to pray or meditate as they choose, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So if you could stand, please. Will join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We have two people who have signed up for in-person public comment. Is there anyone who has signed in to us virtually who would like to offer public comment? If so, if you would please raise your hand and staff will make note of those people.
And Madam Mayor, just let the public know that for the Neil Lechner mini warehouses, you actually closed the public hearing last month. And if anybody was here to speak about that, if you would please speak during public comment, and we will not be reopening the public hearing. So if you're here to speak regarding that item, please speak under public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you noted anyone?
No one as of yet, Mayor.
No. Just a few more seconds. Okay, we will then go with our two in-person people, and the first is Katie Breckheimer. If you could just give your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
Of course. My name is Katie Breckheimer. I live at 1393 Macedonia Road, Saluda, North Carolina. I'm a county resident, Henderson County.
Go ahead.
Greetings, council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Katie Breckheimer. And even though I don't live in the city, I consider Hendersonville my town. And I so appreciate the care and consideration that you and your wonderful staff give to it every single day. I'd like to give a special shout out to Lindsay Simpson for her work on environmental issues and for being the council's liaison to the Environmental Advisory Board, your ESB. I'm here tonight because I'm mad at plastics, especially the kind that get used once and then thrown away. Unfortunately, not much plastic ever gets recycled. So I've joined my voice to an increasing number of folks who agree that there's a glut of plastics out there and we're literally drowning in it. I was pleased to learn that the first time a plastics discussion came up at a council meeting, it warranted a thoughtful discussion and a very positive response. Thank you for that. I'm here tonight because Gray Jernigan is on your agenda to talk about working to be plastic free, a voluntary effort to encourage less plastic use by city restaurants and merchants. I want you to know that I am very much in support of this effort, and I encourage you all to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Good to see you. Next is Tim Robinson. If you could give your name and address for the clerk's record.
Yes, Tim Robinson, 38 Ivy Brook Lane, Hendersonville. Basically, I received a bill. I don't know if you all got the email, but received a bill regarding back charges regarding the garbage collection. And I understand how the city, did an audit and everything. I'm a business owner, and whenever I make a mistake in-house, it's my fault. I've got to, take care of it. My business is vacation rental properties. We kind of had a lean year this year because of the COVID. And like I said, if I make a mistake, it's my problem. And I know that the city, found some, sorry about that. Anyway, I don't feel it's my responsibility to pay for the city's mistakes, the building department. And that's kind of really what I didn't know what else to say.
Okay,
And I was just asking if they could waive the bill. And since we were notified, they have corrected the bill and we're back paying it. But when you look at the invoice, it just says garbage. It doesn't break it out into how many cans or whatever. And, for the same reason, who's to say years from now when they say, wait a minute, we found a mistake on the water bill, we're back charging you for that or something. I didn't think I had to, follow up and make sure that everything's done correctly. So that's why I'm asking if they would waive the bill.
okay. Well, that's something that we will have to discuss with staff and see exactly what led to the situation.
Okay. All right. Will they notify me via the invoice or how will that happen?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay.
Mr. Robinson, I'll be contacting you.
Great.
John Conant, city manager. I'll be in contact with you.
Great. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all our public comment for this evening. Consideration of the agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have added to or removed from this evening's agenda?
Mayor Bolt, I would like to move item 7A from public hearings. That's the continuation of the discussion regarding the Neil Lechner mini warehouses from 7A to 8A, please.
Anything else? Okay. Not a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Madam Mayor, move the agenda be accepted, approved as amended.
Is there any discussion? Not those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion carries and we have our agenda for the evening. Consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda so it can be discussed? Or if not, a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda with the one addition of a correction to the minutes that were distributed.
Madam Mayor, move City Council approve the consent agenda as amended, including the correction to the April 1st, 2021 minutes as distributed at this meeting.
Is there any discussion?
I have one question. I think it relates to that meeting, which is that may be in the minutes, and I apologize for not thinking of that before we did the consent. We had a big discussion that night about the new parking area at Pardee and the number of trees that they agreed to plant. And I'm not sure if that's in the minutes of that meeting. And so I wanted to bring that up to this evening before we approve those minutes. And I apologize, I did not mention that. So I guess I'd like to ask the minutes to be removed. Is it in there, Lou?
I thought that was 2 meetings ago.
Was that 2 meetings
The
ago?
party
Yes,
thing was
yeah,
two.
it was
I
two
think that
meetings.
was in,
My fault. Okay,
February.
never mind then. I withdraw that comment. Sorry.
Okay,
March, I think.
It's in March or in the agenda.
Oh, then that's the one I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Okay, so,
Right.
yeah, we said, no, we said 30 trees. I remember that specifically. He said, I'll do 30 trees.
So I don't have the minutes right in front of me to know the specific reference, but in terms of we had used a buffer standard, which we applied to the,
Right.
what is it? Is it 9th Avenue there? Yeah, along 9th Avenue. So that was
And that standard says how many trees have to be planted.
it does, yeah. So I think we used,
I was a little confused when I read that as to whether or not we got a number out of that so that we're sure that that number gets hit when they.
so we would, so what, and we have, we have a final site plan in-house that we've reviewed according to that standard.
That's good. So if
Okay.
the standard has the number in it, I just want to make sure that that's very clear because they're kind of going above and beyond what they really had to do.
Right.
And we just want to make sure that that standard is hit.
Yeah, the type C buffer has a standard number of plantings per 100 linear feet.
Okay,
And that's what we.
if that's good enough, that's fine. I apologize. I know I just had a number in mind. and I was ready to do that.
Okay.
So we can leave that on there. I remember, I just remember when I got Jared to agree to a number, and that's what I remember when I was reading through it.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Not those in favor of approving the items on the consent agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and consent agenda items have been approved. Okay, presentations. Starting out with a proclamation for National Police Week. Here he comes. All right, come on in. How do you want to do this? Okay.
Yep.
All right, this is a proclamation for National Police Week, May 9th to May 15th, 2021. Whereas police officers around the nation understand the tremendous responsibility bestowed upon them in protecting the freedom and liberty of all citizens. And whereas the men and women of the Hendersonville Police Department are dedicated to protecting and treating all city residents and visitors with respect and dignity against deception, violence, and disorder. And whereas the residents and visitors of the city of Hendersonville recognize the dangers of the law enforcement profession and understand the difficulties in performing the duties and responsibilities of a law enforcement officer in the state of North Carolina. And whereas more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serve communities across the United States, including the 45 sworn police officers of the Hendersonville Police Department. And whereas while officers are ever vigilant, 264 police officers died in the line of duty in 2020, including one in Henderson County, amounting to over 22,000 line of duty deaths since the first death was recorded in 1786. Now, therefore, I, Barbara Wolf, Mayor of the City of Hendersonville, and City Council members, do hereby proclaim May 9th through May 15th, 2021 as National Police Week in the City of Hendersonville, and honor the service of all law enforcement officers and the sacrifices of the men and women killed in the line of duty in 2020, while safeguarding our communities and defending our democracy, and call upon all people to show support to the law enforcement officers who devote themselves to delivering exceptional service to this community and in communities across the nation.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Madam Mayor.
We thank
Council.
you and also
Again, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I very much appreciate this. It's very fitting that we received this today when Watauga County is actually burying 2 deputies right now. So this has been a very challenging year for law enforcement and certainly for Henderson County and Henderson County Sheriff's Office. So it's very important that the staff very much appreciates this, and we'll display this proudly because the fact that y'all will take the time to recognize us for this week, you know, says a lot about y'all's leadership, and we very much appreciate it. So again, thank you on behalf of everybody in the department. Thank you very much for this.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, MVP recipients, Mr. Connor.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, we have basically 5 individuals we'd like to recognize tonight. And I'll begin with a member of our police department, Andrew Gunning. Andrew organized a pump up parade for a Hendersonville Elementary 6th grader, Merritt, before she traveled to Missions Children's Hospital to ring the bell and celebrate her victory over childhood leukemia. Officer Gunning presented her with a special HPD challenge coin at the event. Even more touching, is that Officer Gunning has become a friend to Merritt and her family as he has counseled and encouraged her through the same childhood leukemia he experienced and conquered. So Andrew Gunning was a great role model for our sixth grader there at Hendersonville Elementary School. Next, we'd like to recognize Will Hutchison in our engineering department. Will is a member of our GIS team. He spearheaded a project to create a city citizen report app to replace the report a problem form and make it easy for the public to share non-emergency issues with city staff. Will created the app using the tools available through the GIS division's existing ESRI software, making it a perfect illustration of efficient and cost-effective local government at work. He collaborated with other departments to develop the categories and workflow for the reports and has continued to process the reports that came in from citizens to ensure they receive timely follow-up by city staff. Will, along with communication managers Allison Justice, worked together to create a video and marketing materials to share the Citizen Reporter app with the community. The video brought awareness to the app and even gained recognition by the city's Esri account manager and ArcGIS Solutions product manager for the way the city of Hendersonville is using the software in an innovative way to assist citizens. So we thank Will for doing that and working very hard to use our resources that the city council has provided for us to help our citizens. And then finally, we have 3 firefighters, Corbin Hosley, Dylan Baker, and Mike McKay with the fire department. The crew responded to a motor vehicle accident involving a child. The mother and child was very frantic after the incident, along with her child being very scared from the collision. Lieutenant Hosley and his crew calmed the frantic mother and then gave the child a stuffed wolf to hold on to protect him. The next morning, the city of Hendersonville Fire Department received the Facebook message from the mother stating the following: I wasn't sure the best way to send this note of gratitude, so hopefully this gets to y'all. My son and I were in an accident yesterday after we were struck by another driver. I wanted to thank you all who showed up so promptly, were so caring, gentle with my boy, and able to advise a very freaked out mother. Thank you. I wanted to share a picture of my son, James. James slept with the stuffed wolf you gave him. How? I think it made him feel safe being from a firefighter after a pretty scary day. So I want to thank all of our employees who've gone above and beyond. They were recognized as our MVPs of the quarter. We took them to lunch today, and they'll be part of the pool of employees that will be recognized as part of our Employee of the Year process. So I thank our employees for going above and beyond and really providing great service to our citizens.
Thank you. Thanks to these employees, as well as all of the employees that provide exceptional service. These, as you said, have gone above and beyond, and we do appreciate that. Okay, and then next we have a presentation of a voluntary plastic reduction program. Ray Jernigan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Gray Jernigan. I am an at-large member of the Hendersonville Environmental Sustainability Board. In my professional life, I am the Southern Regional Director of Mountain True, which is a region-wide environmental advocacy organization, and I'm based here in our Hendersonville office. So this problem of plastic pollution, I just want to start by reading kind of a short paragraph illustrating the problem that we're working here to address. As a lightweight, inexpensive, and durable material, which can be utilized in a wide range of applications, plastic is ubiquitous. The United States leads the world as the largest generator of plastic packaging waste on a per capita basis. Despite its usefulness, scientists have raised concerns that plastic waste could lead to damaging environmental and health impacts. The production and incineration of plastic is a significant source of greenhouse gases. Plastics in landfills take up to 1,000 years to decompose, and their amount has increased approximately 70-fold from 1960 to 2018. When this waste makes its way into water sources, it can impact marine life, and it can also degrade into microplastics, which make their way into our food and drinking water. While many open questions remain, some evidence suggests that these microplastics may harm human health. And for many, the precautionary principle suggests the need to limit plastic waste given its ability to infiltrate human and animal food chains. And yeah, I think this year we've really seen a dramatic increase in litter generally, but particularly plastics along our roadsides and our waterways. I've got Mike Huffman here, who's with City Stormwater Department. They can address some of what he's seeing in his line of work.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. So I'm also the staff liaison currently for the Environmental Sustainability Board. So I've been working closely with the board on this initiative. And I'm just here tonight because, as you all know, I work with the trash trout device, and the trash trout's been in for 4 years now. It was installed in June of 2017. And I guess this is kind of a bittersweet statistic, but since that time, it has collected over 6,500 pounds of trash. And I've spent many days out there picking up that trash out of the trash trout. And I can tell you, without a doubt that upwards of 80% of that trash is single-use plastics, plastic bottles, things like that. And so, from the stormwater perspective and the water quality perspective, and also from the environmental sustainability perspective, I think that anything that the city environmental sustainability board, or that the city can, encourage our businesses and our residents to try and reduce their plastic use is a good program for the city. So that's just the information I'd like to pass on tonight. Thank you.
I've got some handouts. Can I distribute these, or can we pass those around? So our goal, looking at the problem out there with single-use plastic specifically, we really wanted to set out with a goal of stopping plastic consumption at the source. The businesses that use plastics in their day-to-day operations, and just to stop those from getting into the consumer's hands, however we can. To that end, the Environmental Sustainability Board set litter and plastics as a priority item to work on. At around the same time, our local Mountain True recycling team of volunteers that meet monthly to talk about recycling issues set this as a priority as well. And so we've kind of joined forces in development of a concept for a program that could be pushed forward in Hendersonville. To further that and to kind of do some preliminary research, in late 2020, we began a business survey where we circulated a questionnaire of basically what businesses were using in terms of plastic products in their business and what was their willingness to make changes. And the response was overwhelmingly positive. We heard from about 20 businesses that most of them used plastics in some way in their business. There were very few that were completely plastic free, but all of them expressed an interest in finding alternatives to those. So in further program development, we've created this working draft that I've passed around of what we're calling our pledge packet that would accompany a pledge, which is the second, the third and fourth pages of that packet that's in front of you, where businesses would take a pledge to commit to taking steps, to basically having a conversation about plastic use and committing to essentially a conversation or a consultation about alternatives that could be implemented in their businesses. We've researched and pulled from similar programs across the country that have been implemented in municipalities that, as close as Asheville, as far away as Miami or Denver, or across on the West Coast. And the goal here is for a program to be voluntary, that businesses can choose whether to participate in or not, that's inclusive. So we would never turn away a business that wanted to have some support, no matter what their level of plastic use might be, and meaningful to adopt some to see a meaningful reduction in plastic consumption in Hendersonville. We're refining some of the details of the program, considering tiered participation or tiered recognition based on the level of plastic reduction a business is able to take on, and recognizing that different businesses have different challenges, whether they be retail or restaurant or other types of businesses that might use plastics. We're also working with volunteers, volunteer graphic designer and others to work on a logo and branding. And we also want to do that consistent with the city standards. So working with Allison and making sure that the city is comfortable with anything that we put out publicly. And from here, I can just kind of walk through this pledge packet. The first page lays out the problem statement that I read earlier, and recognizing that businesses are a contributor to plastics entering into the usage stream, and encouraging businesses to sign the pledge. This would be available digitally, so you could click through to the pledge, or in paper form for folks that might be of technological challenges. The following pages of this pledge packet give some reasons to sign the pledge, some benefits that we could offer. And this is where the nonprofit partnership really can offer some things to businesses in terms of publicity and recognition and things like that. I understand that the city has restrictions on how it can promote one business over another, and we don't want to violate any of those restrictions. So making sure that we're recognizing businesses that participate, but not doing any kind of advertising or anything that would be an unfair benefit. And also offering some alternatives and some sources for plastic alternatives. And then finally, some questions that you might get from customers. If you flip over to the third piece of paper there, it enters the pledge, it restates the problem statement. It has a form where the business can enter contact information. And then the pledge, I pledge to phase out single-use plastic items in my business, supplementing with reusable, compostable, or otherwise sustainable materials. Following that pledge is a commitment that is part of my pledge to work to be plastic-free. I agree to an initial and annual consultation of plastic use in my business, and to work with members of the Mountain True Recycling Team and Hendersonville Environmental Sustainability Board to identify opportunities to incorporate sustainable products and troubleshoot any barriers to moving away from plastic use. So those are really kind of the nuts and bolts that we've laid out of how this might work, and how we can engage with businesses and consult and provide alternatives to plastic use in a way that's not forceful or overbearing. It's really voluntary participation and inclusive of anybody that wants to participate. I want to thank Councilmember Simpson for being our liaison with the Environmental Sustainability Board, and her guidance in talking through a lot of these challenges and development of the program, and her encouragement along the way. And I'd be glad to answer any questions, but I think our goal as we finalize how this program might operate and refine just the final pieces of it, I think we would appreciate as the Environmental Sustainability Board, the council taking up at a future meeting a proclamation or resolution in support of the program, and directing the Environmental Sustainability Board to continue carrying it forward. So with that, I appreciate your time, and I'll be glad to take any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
If the city were to sign the pledge, the city would get the consultation that you talk about on the third page?
Absolutely.
A lot of stuff.
The city's not technically a business, but I think that we have a volunteer body that would love to engage with city programs and to address plastic use within city government as well. I think that goes right along the lines of the inclusivity of the program.
Other questions?
I don't have a question, but I do want to say that I want to commend the members of Mountain True's recycling team and the ESB. They have worked long and hard to put this program together, and I'm really excited to see it come to fruition. And I just really thank you guys for all the hard work you put into it.
Well, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sure you'll be hearing more from us as the months go along.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor. And thank you, council members. Take care.
Uh, 7A has gotten moved to 8A, so we will go to 7B, which is conditional rezoning, equal self-storage.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. The city is in receipt of a conditional rezoning application from B&G Enterprises LLC and Larry Holbert, who is the property owner. So the property is currently zoned or currently located at 2310 Asheville Highway. As you'll see, the property is currently zoned C3 and they're requesting to go to C3 CZD. The property is approximately 7.4 acres. The only development on the property currently is a used car lot that you will see behind the icons on the screen. The proposed use for the property is mini warehouses. The reason that this property is in front of you today is due to the size of the project. Any project over 50,000 square feet requires a conditional rezoning. Mini warehouses are currently a conditional use, or after 160D comes out, a special use in our zoning ordinance currently. So if the project did not exceed 50,000 square feet, the applicant would have applied for a conditional use permit, and those are granted by the Board of Adjustment. The approximate square footage of the building is shown on the screen, which is 99,480 square feet. Since this is a conditional rezoning application, a neighborhood compatibility meeting was held on February 22nd. No one from the public spoke at that meeting. As you'll see, there is not a huge change between the existing zoning and proposed zoning maps. It's like I mentioned, it's going from C3 to C3 CZD. The subject property is mostly surrounded by commercial and industrial zoning and uses. However, to the southern border, you'll see that there is properties that are zoned R10, and that is an established single-family neighborhood. The parcel along with that whole section of Asheville Highway are classified in the 2030 comprehensive plan as neighborhood activity center. This section of the corridor houses various commercial uses such as Builders First Source and Advanced Auto Parts. The east is classified as business center, and that contains Kimberly Clark. The single family neighborhood that I mentioned earlier to the south is classified as medium intensity neighborhood. Neighborhood Activity Center, the goal of that designation is to concentrate retail and dense walkable mixed use nodes located at major intersections in order to promote a sense of community and a range of services that enhance the value of Hendersonville's neighborhoods. The primary recommended land use for that designation, there's only one, and that's neighborhood retail sales and services. There are the secondary recommended land uses are offices, multifamily residential, live work units, public and institutional uses, pedestrian amenities such as plazas and outdoor seating, and mixed uses overall. The primary and secondary land uses are not an exhaustive list, so there could be uses within this designation that are not currently listed on that primary and secondary list. It's also worth noting that many warehouses are not mentioned under any classification in our comprehensive plan, so that does not exclude them from being put in here. They're just not mentioned overall in any classification. These are photos of the site as it exists today. Like I mentioned earlier, the one on the top left is looking from Asheville Highway to the existing used car lot that's currently on the lot. The other three photos are of the property from various vantage points across the subject property. You'll note that the property is pretty flat. It looks like at one point it was previously mass graded to make it such, because there is some different topographies on the adjacent lots. Before you is the proposed site plan for this project. The proposed development is 7 traditional storage buildings with 2 RV storage buildings on the southern property line. This is a phased development. Construction will be done in 2 phases. The first 6 buildings coming into the development will be constructed in phase 1. And the L-shaped building and the 2 RV storage buildings at the southern portion of the property would be in phase 2 in a future phase of the development. The parcel will still be accessed by actual highway only. The project will exceed 1 acre in total land disturbance, so they'll be required to install a stormwater management system, which is on the eastern portion of the property. The project meets the open space and parking requirements per the zoning ordinance. And the parcel does have a blue line stream running through it, but however, the blue line stream is currently piped and will remain piped, and there's no buildings proposed in that area. The planning board unanimously recommended this project at their April meeting with 2 conditions. The first of which is on your screen currently. This condition is as follows. The section along the southern border that does not currently have an existing vegetative buffer shall be planted with the type B buffer in accordance with the zoning ordinance. And that any area deemed to not have a sufficient existing buffer shall be supplemented on the final landscaping plan and be landscaping plan by the developer during the final site plan review. The photos on the screen show possible areas where that condition would come into play. The developer also proposed a condition as well, and that's what you see on your screen right here. This condition was also recommended by the planning board in their recommend for approval. The developer proposed condition is as follows: plant 61 evergreen shrubs, 60 deciduous shrubs, and 3 small flowering trees along the southern border, while maintaining the existing buffer as shown on the preliminary landscape plan to count as the required type B buffer. So these are some photos of the existing buffer as it stands today between the subject property that to be developed and the subject area to be developed and the residential housing to the south. So this is currently what is on the property as of right now. The tree board reviewed this project at their April meeting. They made the following recommended condition: remove the invasive species listed in the recommended tree species list, except for the bamboo, which is serving as a visual buffer from the adjacent neighborhood, and to replant using trees from the recommended trees species list. The planning board chose not to include this condition in their motion. The planning board made this determination due to possible erosion issues caused by the removal of these plantings and the impacts to the effectiveness of the existing buffer. All of the planning board's recommended condition, which were those 2 conditions previously mentioned, and the tree board's recommended condition are currently included in the list of uses and conditions, which means they are included in the motion. If you choose to remove any of these conditions or add conditions, this would need to be made clear during the motion portion. And I just also wanted to mention that all conditions must be agreed upon by the developer and the city. And I'd be happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Have any questions?
I have a question. What were the invasive species that they wanted removed?
So these tree survey we were provided with did not show the shrubbery that were quote unquote invasive. I think what they had originally saw during our photos and presentation to the tree board was the bamboo, with the assumption that there is more invasive species in that buffer. I'm sure Will could speak to more of what's actually on the site as far as invasives than I can.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Would the developers like to make a presentation?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. I'm Will Bowie with WGLA Engineering. I'm here with the developers of the property. I'd like to just give you a short presentation and answer any questions that you all might have. And so, Brian, if you don't mind, we'll just run right through. To mention, I'll introduce the folks that are here with us tonight, review a couple of their existing projects. These folks already have similar projects in our community, in our neighborhood, and then we'll talk a little bit about Eagle Self-Storage North, okay? So the owners and developers of this property are Henderson County natives. Bart Salvaggio, Dale Bradshaw, brother and sister, they have grown up here in Henderson County. Steve somehow showed up along the way. Steve is Dale's husband. These are folks that are Henderson County natives. They are folks that you see on the street in your restaurants downtown, and so you're quite familiar with our community and what our community would like to see. Previous projects that they've been involved in, and Brian, we can jump to the next one. You all may be familiar with Eagle Self Storage that is on Spartanburg Highway, just beyond Upward Road. This facility was constructed in 2005-6 timeframe, Bart? About 16 years ago. That business has been very successful. I would ask you to take a look at the buildings. These will be similar to what you would see should this project be approved tonight. And Brian, we can jump to the next one. This is South Allen Road. If you're familiar, this facility was constructed in 2018 timeframe, 17-18 timeframe, and was expanded again in 2020. So you can see already from the existing facilities, there is a demonstrated need that we have in our community for this. Okay, can jump to the next one. We couldn't quite see the presentation, but I think Tyler's presentation was similar to what we saw at Planning Board. So you all have already probably seen these aerial photographs. You see the existing conditions that we have today. We believe that this will be a vast improvement for the conditions that we have along Asheville Highway. That this will be a much better, improved look for the neighborhood. You also see on the aerial, Tyler had mentioned the southern buffer. You can see the trees that are along that southern buffer. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the site plan. Great. So this is the proposed site plan. As Tyler has described to you, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail unless you all have questions about it. There are 7 proposed traditional storage buildings. Some of those will be climate controlled buildings. Some of those will be more traditional non-climate controlled buildings. The RV storage is proposed to be on the southern property line, as you can see. What I would point out to you on this site plan that we think is important is that we did have a tree survey completed. We are working with Tricia King, a local landscape architect, and we identified the fact that we do have residential neighbors to our south. We realized that this will be impactful to them, and we felt that it was very important to leave the buffer that was in place as much as possible and supplement that buffer to the extent that we can. We've worked with Tricia on a plan that we feel is a good plan that not only preserves the trees that you see there, but will enhance them. And to speak specifically about the invasive species, there are examples of Bradford pears that are located up near the existing used car lot. The other invasive species, I'm an engineer, I will not pretend to be a landscape architect, but based on our conversations with Tricia, most of those invasive species from a tree standpoint will be removed with the construction of the facilities that you see here. We had a long discussion with Tricia about this and the comments from the tree board, and we had a good discussion with the planning board about the tree board's considerations. We feel like most of the invasives will be removed through the course of construction. We believe that the buffer that we have along that southern boundary is very important, and we would like to keep that and supplement that. And I think the tree board even saw that the benefit of that by suggesting that the bamboo not be removed, obviously bamboo being an invasive species. but it certainly provides a great buffer. So what we had suggested is that we work with Tricia to provide the final landscaping plan that where possible will remove the invasive species, but allow us to leave the buffer, the trees and the bushes that you see on the southern boundary that will allow us to keep that buffer in place, provide a great buffer for our neighbors to the south, and the final landscaping plan will identify those areas and identify what we will replace. And all new plantings will comply with City of Hendersonville standards as far as native species for recommended planting. Okay, Brian, we can jump to the next slide. Just a couple of other things. This again is just a bit more detailed, the site plan. We can actually jump on really to the last slide, and I'll wrap up and answer questions that you all may have of us. Again, I think it's important that these folks are local. They live in our community. These are not developers that are going to come here one time and build something and we'll never see them again. These are folks that we're going to see around town all the time. I think that's very important from my perspective. Based on the demand, we believe that there's a demonstrated need for this facility. These folks have conducted a study on their own. Part of that study includes their very own waiting list. They have an extensive waiting list of users. And as a matter of fact, Bart told me just last week in one day, they had between 20 and 25 phone calls for storage in one day. So we think this is better than some national study that says that there's a need for this in Hendersonville. This is a true need. This project will be a redevelopment and infill of an existing parcel. We think it's an improvement over what you'll see. We believe the project will be compatible with the surrounding area by preserving and enhancing the buffer that's to the south. And we believe that that will make this a very significant project. When you look at the rezoning criteria, we believe that this project is compatible with the comprehensive plan. We believe that it is in the public interest based on the need that's demonstrated. And we believe that this will have a positive environmental impact. There are existing impervious areas that are on the site with no stormwater management. This plan will provide stormwater management, which will improve water quality and runoff from this site. And I'll stop there and be glad to try to answer any questions that you all may have for us about the project.
Any questions?
Sir, Mr. Smith.
So in the original presentation, they said that there are 3 conditions that are included in essence with the motion. But one of those you guys proposed, one
Yes.
was proposed by the planning board, one's proposed by the tree board. So are you asking us to get rid of one of those? And which one are you asking us to get rid of? Because I'm a little confused.
I was actually a little confused when Tyler explained that.
Okay.
I'm going to try to start, and hopefully Tyler can correct me where I misspeak. I think the suggested motion from the planning board and staff was the fact that that there is no credit that is given for existing preservation of existing bushes and shrubs. And I think the motion that, or the condition that was considered gave value to those shrubs and bushes that we would preserve. The second motion, which is a motion that we had, or condition that we had suggested, perhaps gave numbers to that. It actually provided specific numbers that we would include. The tree board's recommendation, we would ask that that not be included in an approval if you also see fit. Again, we believe that there's a potential for erosion and damage of the existing buffer if we follow the tree board's recommendations specifically, and the planning board saw that to be the case. And if there's any motion, we would like it to be, or any condition, excuse me, any condition that's considered, we would like it to be that we're allowed to work with our landscape architect and city staff to provide a suitable landscaping plan that would provide an adequate buffer. Does that help clarify your question?
I know the tree board's out, got that.
Yes, sir.
What you've agreed to is the conditions that you've recommended and not the planning board's recommendation.
No, you want to?
Or if I've confused that.
Yeah, so the planning board recommended condition that was the first condition that was brought up.
Right.
That was originally decided on, staff came up with that. And planning board agreed with it and they recommended that it be attached to the approval.
Okay.
The developer also had a recommended condition, which that was also reviewed by planning board and they also recommended that condition as well. So they recommended those conditions, but they did not recommend tree board's condition.
Right. So is that in lieu of the original conditions that you guys worked out?
So those were they recommended both of those conditions as they were written going into the meeting.
Got it.
They were not changed.
And so I'm asking, are you in agreement with both of those conditions? The ones you proposed and the ones they proposed?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We will go on to the public hearing. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes? Okay, so we will open this public hearing. Is there anyone present or online who wishes to comment during this public hearing? Anyone who wishes to comment on the public hearing regarding Eagle self-storage?
I don't see any at this time, Mayor.
Anyone? We did receive one comment via the city's website earlier. This is from Donna Durr. She said, I hope decisions made regarding the rezone proposal do not negatively affect the quality of life and property value of Stony Crest neighborhood. I am concerned because my lots are for sale within 400 feet of the proposal. I want it to remain a pleasant neighborhood and no potential buyer lose interest because of the proposed large self-storage operation. Thank you for considering the impacts of living near the proposed project. Still don't see any other comments.
No other comments at this time.
All right, in that case, we will close that public hearing. Discussion or a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion, but I have no idea exactly what I'm supposed to say with regard to those two proposals. And do I just read it like it says on here and that's it?
I think they're included in that motion, right? All the proposals that were already there.
Well, I think we have to remove the tree board's recommendation.
Right.
Yeah, you would have to say that if you wanted to decide to remove the tree board's recommendation, you have to state that. Since planning board and tree board are both advisory boards, both of their recommendations are included, whether the other one recommends it or not.
All right, so where it says in here, limitations and conditions stipulated on the list of uses and conditions excluding the tree boards one, that's how you would do that? Okay. Okay. Ready to make a motion, Madam Mayor, if that's all right? Madam Mayor, gotcha. I move City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property from C3 highway business to C3 conditional, to CZD highway business conditional zoning district based on the site plan submitted by the applicant and subject to the limitations and conditions stipulated on the list of uses and conditions with the exclusion of the conditions that were recommended by the tree board. Finding that the rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use map and that the rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest for the following reason, the development will provide additional storage options for residents of the city.
Is there any discussion? Not those in favor of the motion approving the Eagle self-storage project, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, the motion carries, and that has been approved. Thank you. Okay, Next, we have a zoning map amendment, Edgewood Avenue Lot P21-17-RZO.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Yes, tonight I bring you a zoning map amendment application for a lot with no address located on Edgewood Avenue to rezone the parcel from I-1 light industrial to R6 high density residential. The size of the lot is 0.3 acres. This is a standard rezoning or zoning map amendment. So it's different from our CZD process. There is no site plan. Yes.
All right. Is it 0.3 or 0.03? Because it says 0.03 on the thing, and so I was confused about that.
That
That
would
would
be
be a
confused. It's
difference.
0.30, so 0.3 acres. So just under a third of an acre. And I apologize about that. There is no site plan, so there's no binding site plan. So there's no official development proposed, and there's no use specifically proposed. The planning board did consider this at their April 12th meeting, and it was passed unanimously by them. As you can see in the rezoning map, the proposed zoning would be a continuation or an extension of R6 zoning, which is already in the area. And the R6 CZD to the south of this site has been approved, but not developed as of yet. And shifting from the I-1, which you can go to the next slide, to the R6, the I-1 allows for residential, but it has dimensional requirements that would make it difficult for infill development. So for instance, the minimum lot size is 40,000 for industrial versus 6,000. So this lot being 0.3 could actually be subdivided into 2 lots under R6, but that would not be optional under I-1, under its current zoning. Similarly, the building width at the minimum lot width at the building line is 100 feet in the industrial. The front setback is 35 feet, side setback is 20 feet, and the rear setback is 20 feet. So all those are much larger, make it much more difficult for development, for infill residential development, even though the residential use is permitted. The existing land use all around this site is primarily residential. That is the dominant use. The rail line in the rear does have some industrial uses adjacent to it. But even the industrial zoning to the north of this lot actually has a residence on it as well. And in the future land use map, it's designated as medium intensity neighborhood. And so this medium intensity neighborhood designation and the R6 zoning are aligned. This would be compatible with the comprehensive plan. It's designated as a development opportunity in our comprehensive plan. This lot is, and preservation enhancement area as well, because it is tucked into an existing neighborhood. And just down the street is a National Register Historic District. And this site is in close proximity to downtown. You can see to the south, the 7th Avenue district is just to the south. North Main is right there. And so you can kind of get a sense of all that urban residential land uses there in close proximity to some of our urban commercial districts. So just some quick photos here. The top left is to access this site, you would go straight down that. Edgewood Avenue actually curves off to the right, but there is a platted right of way that they would access their lot from, as well as the lot further south that's got the CZD, R6 CZD zoning. And the house that's on the right in the upper left photo is seen, if you're standing kind of at the front of this lot, you can see the rear of that house in the upper right photo. And then on the bottom left photo, you can see the property to the south that has the R6 CZD zoning. It's been planted with evergreens. And then you can see a photo of the rail line
along the back of the property in the bottom right photo. Just some additional photos here that show you the site. There is a little bit of a terrace in the topography, and the adjacent or along the border of the northern border of the property is a small dumping site. So all that would be cleaned up as part of any development that occurs here. So as I mentioned, the planning board passed this unanimously. It is a standard rezoning or zoning map amendment. So there's no conditions, there's no neighborhood compatibility meeting, and there's no site plan. And so we present this to you for your consideration. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. The petitioner want to make any comments or no?
Matt, is the petitioner's Tamara?
Question for me, Joey Burnett should be on.
Yes, good evening. Like Matt said, my name is Joey Burnett. I work with Tamara Company Architects. We had recently purchased this piece of property. It started as a venture for a piece of historical preservation. We are working with the clients and they are proposing the demolition of a 1930s shotgun style craftsman house. And this lot was kind of purchased with the anticipation of relocating that house on it. That still might come to fruition, especially with the cost of construction, the manipulating the existing house to kind of move to this lot is still something we're seriously considering. And that's, you can kind of see that footprint on the site plan presented ahead of you. Like Matt had mentioned, the lot is sized where we can actually subdivide it to increase the density a little bit. Given the proximity to 7th Avenue and all the fine work you guys have put into 7th Avenue, we'd be remiss if we didn't allow more people to experience that. So we have kind of showed the lot at its maximum allowable density as proposed here. The lot, we have talked to the developers on the lot to the south, and they are going with a similar sized house. So there might be some kind of collaboration moving forward to kind of create a cohesive neighborhood feel, moving back off of Edgewood Avenue on that road easement you can see there. Like I said, we felt like the industrial zoning was pretty inhibitive, and rezoning to R6 to match its neighbors presented a better neighborhood feel, even now and moving into the future. You know, there's all the lots off of Edgewood Avenue. It's a one-way road, but every single one of the lots off of it are residential, and it felt a little odd to have an industrial, even if it turned commercial or some other function besides residential. We felt that it would feel a little out of place. So we felt this was an appropriate request for rezoning, and we hope that we can find some nice density in this area to reap the benefits of all your fine work in downtown.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for Mr. Burnett? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes? We'll open this public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to comment on this zoning map amendment? Anyone seeking recognition? Like there is not, and there's no one present either. So we will close that public hearing. Comments, discussion, or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that the city council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property from I-1 industrial to R6 high-density residential. Finding that the rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use map and that the rezoning is reasonable and in the public's interest, that the rezoning will advance goals to relate to infill development and housing.
Is there any discussion? Not, those in favor of approving the zoning map amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries, and Edgewood Avenue lot has been rezoned. Next, we have an annexation public hearing for the Garrison property, P21-16-ANX. Paul is going to do this one.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. The city of Hendersonville has received a petition from the Economic Investment Fund of Henderson County for the non-contiguous annexation of the PINs listed on the agenda summary. The located parcels are adjacent to I-26 lane between Upward Road and Crest Road on Garrison Lane. And you all will be familiar with this site as relates to the project wheel. Total property acreage is approximately 41 acres, and within the agenda package, there is some map information for that. So I'm available to ask or answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes? We will open this public hearing. Would anyone wish to comment on the annexation of the Garrison property? Anyone wish to comment? No?
I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Don't see anyone seeking recognition. Therefore, we will close that public hearing. Okay, council, what would you like to do?
Madam Mayor, I move the council adopt an ordinance annexing the non-contiguous parcels identified as pins 958-738-0701, 958-738-7266, 958-727-9877, and 958-728-7026, finding that the standards established by North Carolina General Statute 160A-58.1 have been satisfied and that the annexation is in the best interest of the city.
Mayor Vogt, may I clarify one thing? I think, council members, I don't have the motion sheet. The second to the last number you read, council member, you said 9877, and on the summary sheet, it's 9887. So I just want to make sure it's perfectly clear we get the right PIN number. I want to make sure we're absolutely right with that 958-727-9887, or is it 9877? Do we know?
9887.
It says 887. There's a lot of 9s and 8s and 7s. Do you want me to read it again?
No, I just want to be absolutely clear for the minutes that we have 958-727-9887.
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse the interruption.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not, those in favor of annexing the Garrison property, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and that is taken care of. Thank you. All right, now we will take up 7A, which is the continuation of discussion and vote regarding the Neil Lecter mini warehouses.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. We do have a presentation for you this evening from a staff perspective based on a couple of the discussion points from last month. If you'll go to the next slide, Brian. So the first slide is just an image of the existing sewer and water infrastructure that exists in this area. So you'll see kind of at the center of that aerial image is the Duncan Hill, Berkeley, and Signal Hill intersection. And just up from that, you see the site location highlighted. And you can, in terms of reading topo, the the easternmost section of the property is at the ridge line. So that topography, you can see that's a high point in Signal Hill Road. The bright green, almost neon green, is the location of existing city of Hendersonville gravity sewer. So you'll notice where Brian's pointing there, that is down Berkeley Road. There is also existing sewer at the top of the hill of Duncan Hill, and then associated with the Akawaha Village project at the sort of bottom corner there. Yeah. So you can see how topography obviously impacts where the site can connect. So although the line on Duncan Hill is, you know, as the bird flies or as the crow flies, the closest location, it's not a feasible location which to connect a gravity line. That would require you know, pumps, and we're working hard to avoid that as a part of the infrastructure. So just want to highlight that in terms of next slide, extensions and both the master plan and the policy documents that you all have as it relates to sewer line extensions. This image, I know it's a little hard to read, and please recognize it is absolutely a very high level recap of the city sewer asset inventory and assessment report, which was completed in early 2019. That document is 265 pages long, so I will not be going fully into that. But this map that you see on the right there does highlight the list of projects, capital projects that were associated with that study and recommendations that were made. There are 6 extensions. They're in the gray. I know that's a little hard to see, but the gray boxes point to proposed gravity sewer line extensions that were part of the assessment and that are part of the ongoing sewer capital plan improvements that you all no doubt are discussing on a regular basis. They represent a little over 65,000 linear feet of new line. Just shy of 12.5 miles of line. There is one that's not visible on this image that extends from Osceola Lake up Finley Creek, basically goes upstream that direction. You know, in terms of where our site is, east side of town off of 64, there are no proposed major extensions, as you can see on this map, in that area. You all do have, like I mentioned earlier, an existing policy for sewer line extensions, which was adopted not that long ago, but does lay out kind of the steps for parcels. It actually gives existing properties a way of requesting the sewer line extension and lays out what costs would be associated with that for the developer or individual. So just wanted to touch on that. I know we kind of got into that discussion last month. There's obviously a lot to this. I know that we'll be talking about this as we move forward in our work on the comp plan revision and interaction with our engineering team and our water sewer team. So before I go on from that, any questions about any of those things?
Lou, one thing to also, as part of this sewer extension discussion, we also talked about the project across Signal Hill from this particular site. And I don't know if you were going to cover that, but just we had talked about it among the staff, and I was reminded that that was a tax credit project. So the timeline on that project, if it gets built, is one, dependent on them receiving tax credits from the housing, the state housing folks, and secondly, just the timeline we don't know. So the timeline for the potential development of the housing project that would extend sewer in some manner across the street is unknown at this time. It could be as much as 2 years or maybe never. So as we look at those two developments and we discuss at the staff level, we could not reliably inform council that this site could be served by any sewer that was extended as part of that residential development. So just want to be clear about that. We did have a little bit of that discussion last month, and we just don't know when and if that would be extended.
So go next slide. And so just recapping the project that we do have on, obviously these were things that you all saw last month. So I'm going to go relatively quickly. It is a rezoning CZD request. The existing zoning is our R20 low density residential, and the proposed zoning is C3 CZD highway business conditional zoning district. The project details there that it's a new 47,485 square foot mini storage, mini warehouse building. Next slide, please. This shows existing zoning and proposed zoning. Just again, highlighting the location and the surrounding zoning districts. You do see that the site is R20 with some C3 in the area and a PCD planned commercial development kind of associated with that triangle parcel there at Duncan Hill Signal Hill intersection. Next slide, please. Existing land use and future land use. Again, you have approved a conditional zoning district for the parcel immediately to the south for an apartment complex. Again, though, don't know the timing on that. And you can see a variety of vacant and residential in the immediate area of the site. And then future land use shows the medium intensity and high intensity neighborhood. You can see a little piece of the red there, which is an activity center, the neighborhood, it's either regional or neighborhood activity center. But that is one of the activity center designations in the future land use. Next slide, please. So the existing future land use map designation is high intensity neighborhood. Did want to just spend a little time on this revisiting because this was a component of the conversation last month. Mini warehouse is a use identified for additional review by our zoning ordinance, which Tyler noted in his presentation. Even in the districts in which it is allowed, it is a conditional use or a special use, which requires a review by the Board of Adjustment. So in C3, when under 50,000 square feet, when a mini warehouse would come forward, it would still go to the Board of Adjustment for a different level of review. It's a quasi-judicial hearing, which you all who've been on council for a while will be familiar with from the past. It does have supplemental standards required in Article 16 of our zoning ordinance, which are applied to the design review of mini warehouses, no matter which zoning district they're proposed to be included in. The comprehensive plan more generally refers to uses, referring to commercial, multifamily, single family, attached or detached, etc., but focuses primarily on categories of use. High intensity neighborhood is described as a mixed use environment within the comp plan. In the population and housing section, strategy 3.2, it's identified as encouraging mixed land use patterns that place residents within walking distance of services. In addition to design features, mixed use development helps to achieve a walkable, safe neighborhood. Hendersonville's commercial corridors represent opportunities for mixed use redevelopment on the edges of neighborhoods, and mixed use redevelopment should incorporate multifamily residential development, offices, institutions, retail, services, either within the same building or in adjacent buildings. In action 3.2.1, these are strategic actions. It's identified as promoting mixed use redevelopment along major thoroughfares through zoning map or text amendments in accordance with the high intensity neighborhood and neighborhood activity center classifications on the future land use plan. Elsewhere in the plan, high-intensity neighborhoods are highlighted for the purposes of creating low-maintenance, high-density housing that supports neighborhood and regional activity centers and downtown, and further provides a transition between commercial and single-family development. Office and retail are secondary uses within high-intensity neighborhoods, but are noted to occur on a thoroughfare. And Signal Hill Road is not identified as a thoroughfare on the future land use plan. It is designated as a local street. Next slide, please. So this is the final site plan. You're familiar with this from last month. I don't have any additional comments on this, just have it available for you all as needed. One sort of last thing to discuss, you may vote to approve a rezoning, even in situations when the rezoning is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. State statutes require that a comp plan consistency statement be a component of any rezoning. The above motion for approval, which you had it on the screen for a second, does include, and this is in your agenda packet also, it notes that in approving the rezoning, the comprehensive plan would also be amended. In this case, to a regional activity center, which is the most, so it was regional activity center. That would be the future land use that is existing along the 64 corridor and exists east of this site on the opposite side of Signal Hill Road. Comprehensive plan consistency is one of 6 items that are proposed to be included in the review of rezoning requests per our zoning ordinance. Those also include compatibility with surrounding uses, change conditions or trends impacting the site, necessitating the rezoning, public interest, the adequacy of public facilities, and the effect on the natural environment. So I stand available to answer any questions that you might have. And I do believe that the developer is also on the call and has some slides and available to answer questions.
Anyone have questions?
Hi, yes, my name is Austin Greenhalgh. I'm representing Pesterfield Civil Engineering in this matter. We, as we already had met previously last month and we're moving it forward, we had a few ideas, a few things that the developer had sent us for different architectural styles that he's interested in. The first one you're seeing is it was one of 3. And I think that basically what the developer wants to demonstrate and get the point across is that one thing he'd like to do, if approved, is to mimic the environment and to include in the same theme as the intended comprehensive plan in the future. So depending on what multifamily styles go in across the street or nearby as we move forward throughout the next couple of years, we want to make sure that the same style of brick, same style of different materials would match the existing style in that area. So this first one is one that he had sent us that he was interested in. The second slide is a more modern type style. Of course, these are nothing more than some stock images at this point, but basically, as long as, whatever would work best in the area is something that he'd be willing to do without a doubt. And then the third slide is another style, very more classic type style storage building. And he wanted us to go ahead and propose show a few images of different types he would be happy to do. And I think that he would be more than agreeable to meet any modifications that would be proposed in terms of the aesthetic. And that's about it. Unless there's any other questions about the previous presentation from last month, I think that's the point we wanted to get across today, was that we'd like to make it match whatever is in the area if approved.
Any questions? Don't appear to have any questions from council. Thank you. Right. Discussion or emotion?
I mean, I still feel like this project is not consistent with the area. It's just popping commercial right in the middle of a bunch of residential. And it's on the tallest part of the property and it's 3 stories high. It just doesn't feel consistent to me.
I agree. But that was from our last meeting. It doesn't seem to fit.
How big a apartment building could be built there? I mean, is that, I just want to know what some comparables are. What could be done on it? If it were residential as opposed to, and I think we discussed it some.
We did, yeah. So one of the, if it were rezoned with the idea that it would be getting converted to residential, one of the typical directions that we would direct a developer in is PRD. This site is under 3 acres, so it's not eligible for our major PRD designation. It could be a minor PRD for the size, the underlying zoning being R20. We get to basically 4 residential units on the parcel from a density perspective. It could also, yeah, so it could also rezone to another commercial district. For instance, CMU, we have other districts that would be, that would allow greater density, but wouldn't be contiguous with any surrounding zoning in the area, right? So can you flip back to the existing zoning map? One more, yeah. So existing zoning is, as you see, R20. You could rezone to a denser residential. You could rezone to R6, which would provide a little bit smaller lot sizes. So there are some ways that you could move towards some greater density, but it's still going to be tied to the minor PRD regs typically. Now, as Matt was pointing out, you could rezone to CMU, central mixed use. Now, this is not a central mixed use location. Some of those other kinds of zoning districts have no limits on density, but that exists because of where we have them, right? So central mixed use is typically right around downtown, and we're promoting a higher density threshold in those locations. So I think in terms of, how that rezoning would jive with existing rezoning and be compatible, you might find equal concerns with some of that, rezoning to something like CMU versus just a PRD or residential rezoning.
And is this area that's going to be used for, I guess, the septic field, would it even manage like if it were 4 units, residential units in it, is questionable. Plus, would you want it? Okay.
The discussion? Motion?
Madam Mayor, I move the city council deny the rezoning of the subject property for the following reasons. The development is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and not compatible with the surrounding uses.
Or any discussion? Not? All those in favor of denying the rezoning, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, the mayor votes aye, so it is, from what I can hear, a vote of 4 in favor of the denial, 1 in opposition to denial. Motion for denial is approved. We're sorry for all the time and effort that the developer put in, but it is the decision of the council that this is not an appropriate area for this project. Thank you. Okay, new business, review of diversity and inclusion committee bylaws. Comment.
Mayor Vogt, members of City Council, simply tonight asking to present the draft charter and rules of procedure for the council's Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, a committee that the council has directed staff to develop bylaws and charter for. It's a priority of yours. We have the bylaws before you and in your agenda packet. Just wanted to have a discussion. First, I'll start with really about the purpose and the powers of the advisory committee, what you want this committee to do. I'd like to get your feedback. I'm not asking you to approve anything tonight, but just point it out to you and then get feedback either tonight or following this meeting for me to bring this back to you at your June meeting. But the general purpose of the committee is to serve as an advisory role to the city council on the matters pertaining to equity and inclusion. The city shall provide input and guidance for city council's strategic objective to prioritize equity and inclusion and create a culture of belonging, address past inequities, and treat everyone with respect and dignity, subject to such limitations as may be imposed by state law or by ordinances of the city. So this is the draft purpose. So draw that to your attention. If you would like for this committee to do any other specific items related to their advisory role to you, please like that input. So I'll point that out to you. Secondly, point out the membership of the committee. We are proposing that obviously all appointments shall be made by the City of Hendersonville City Council. Our proposal at this point is the committee shall consist of 7 at-large members plus 2 city council liaisons. Things that guidance from city council is if you want to have more specific guidelines of where these individuals live as it relates to do you want them to all live in different parts of the city? They all have to be within the city limits. At this point, it's all at large. So we'd like that guidance on how you would like to appoint these members. You have specific, again, residents of Hendersonville, or would you entertain a greater Hendersonville approach? You may have folks that serve in leadership positions in the Hendersonville community, but may not live in the corporate limits. Just things for you to receive guidance and for staff. You have the terms there. They'd be staggered 3-year terms appointed by city council in June. And she'll be for 3-year terms again. They can serve no more than 2 consecutive full 3-year terms. And then the other main item that for your consideration is how often would you like for this committee to meet? Oh, excuse me, let me back up. In one, want to make sure I point out that in addition to the at-large members, it's 2 city council liaisons. So if we need to change that, we'd like that guidance too. But the final thing for your direction and guidance and anything else is how often do you want this committee to meet? Do you want them to meet regularly? We have a date and time here that is actually a date and time of another committee meeting. We just put it in there as an example. So the main thing we need to know is how often you want them to meet, whether monthly, every other month, quarterly. Those are the main things I need guidance from city council related to setting up this advisory committee.
So we don't have to pick a meeting date.
No,
It's
sir.
monthly tonight, just that whether or not it's gonna be monthly.
Monthly, yes, whatever your preference is. So those are really the main guidance I need from city council. Is it appropriate size, council representation, to have captured your purpose? Is this what you want this committee to do? Do you want more specific, additional language? Again, wanted to point it out and get feedback, or you feel appropriate draw it to your attention, and you can give me feedback as we move through the month of May and bring this back to you for your approval at your June meeting.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a clarifying question of Mr. Conant? When you say liaisons, I just want to be clear if you're talking about like members, voting members, or just simply attend and kind of be a conduit for conversation? Because if it's actual members, it'll affect quorum and are they voting? I'm just trying to clarify what you mean so we can make sure it says what
So
city
ask that
council means.
as far as it relates to the council member.
Yes, the two city council liaisons. Are you proposing that? I'm not quite sure if you're meaning
Okay, so I mean, and that's a good,
members or what,
that's a good,
what city
that's a
council
good,
wants.
that's a question for city council. In other committees, I do not think the council member has their voting members. They do attend as just liaison and in the information conduit. But for this committee, you could do it that, I assume we could do it that way, or they could be voting members. So that would be, thank you for that. It could be.
Sure, and if they're members, then that would count. It would actually be a 9-member board for purposes of a quorum. That's what I'm asking. That's really what I'm asking.
Anyone have particular thoughts this evening, or would you like to think about it for a while and then let Mr. Conant know?
I mean, I think I will say I prefer them to stay just liaisons instead of voting members, because sometimes meetings overlap and you can't make it, and then the committee wouldn't be able to do what they need to do, and it just gets really complicated.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you. So just
All right, we will.
let us know.
I'll be thinking about that and let you know. Thank you.
Do we need to decide whether we wanted to meet monthly or not? That part before we leave this? Did you need that, or do you need to hear that from us?
Well, ultimately, I will need that guidance.
Oh, you mean before we vote on it next? We don't
Yeah,
need it
before you
right now.
approve it.
I got you.
ultimately.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Before,
Okay.
before you approve it. So,
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So we will talk among ourselves individually with Mr. Conant or 2x2. Okay, next is approval of resolution accepting proposal from ADW Architecture for the development of architecture and engineering plans for new Fire Station 1.
Mayor, I'll turn it over to Adam Murr, our senior budget and management analyst.
Hey, everyone. Good to see you ahead of our meeting tomorrow. We have been working on an RFQ process for an architect for Fire Station 1. This all started as a facility assessment, which was presented to council in January of 2020. So we currently have a $1.5 million budget for the study, architecture, and construction of the facility. Eventually, we will need to amend the budget. Right now, we're okay. So what we have for you today is just a contract as a result of an RFQ process for ADW Architects to design that station. If you have any questions about how we selected ADW, what the process looked like, I'm happy to answer those.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, discussion?
Madam Mayor, move the city council adopt the resolution accepting ADW Architecture's proposal for the development of architecture and engineering plans for the new Fire Station 1.
Is there any discussion? Not those in favor of accepting the proposal from ADW, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. And we can move forward with that. Next, another resolution, this time to accept the $750,000 community development block grant.
Mayor Vogt, members of City Council, the City of Hendersonville has received a $750,000 neighborhood revitalization program grant to install public infrastructure, renovate 4 homeowner occupied properties in the Ash Street neighborhood. In addition, as partner projects or other projects in the area, will also be replacing the water and sewer lines in the area, as well as working with housing assistance to build some new affordable housing in the neighborhood. But the grant money will strictly be focusing on curb and gutter, sidewalks, as well as the renovation of these 4 properties in the neighborhood. We're asking you tonight to adopt a resolution that will authorize the mayor to execute the grant agreement and funding approval between the City of Hendersonville and the Department of Commerce. Authorize the city manager to negotiate a contract with Land to Sky Council of Governments to assist city staff with grant administration. We have to have a experienced grant administrator as part of the Department of Commerce regulations. So we partner with Land to Sky. We'd also authorize the following individuals to sign requisition for funds and other documents. Myself, Brian Polly, Assistant City Manager, John Buchanan, Finance Director, and Crystal Powell, Assistant Finance Director. Then also authorize me to negotiate and enter into agreement with Housing Assistance Corporation to allow them to serve as a sub-recipient and assist with the housing rehabilitation of the 4 homeowner occupied. They've run the first program to select those homeowners and also are very experienced with housing rehabilitation. So we enter into an agreement within the budgeted funds that are already available within the grant. So we ask you tonight to adopt this resolution, which would allow us to execute the grant agreement and funding approval with the Department of Commerce and begin the process of moving forward with execution of this grant.
Any questions? Either discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, move City Council approve the resolution to accept the $750,000 community development block grant.
Is there any discussion? Not, those in favor of accepting the grant, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion carries, and move forward with that one too.
I asked a question, Mr. Conant, and that is, we've talked about some of this before, but is there a time frame of when we might see hammers and saws and things happening?
So it'll take us 2 or 3 months to get everything up and running. We have to do an environmental assessment and some other things. So it'll probably be the summer before we get that done and go through the environmental clearinghouse. So we're expecting for housing rehab, our plan is to begin that in the fall. And then the infrastructure improvements will follow. We will do the water and sewer infrastructure. We have 36 months to do this, I think. 23 or 36. We've got a couple different timelines on a couple of different grants, but it's almost 2 years, at least 2 years. But we'll do the water and sewer project first, and then come back and do the sidewalk and the curb and gutter, and then clean everything up with a nice resurfacing of the whole neighborhood. So timing wise, it'll probably be next spring or summer before we get to the curb and gutter and the sidewalk. But we'll do the housing. We want to do the housing rehab first thing because we're going to also be working on the water and sewer next spring and summer. So we want to make sure we phase everything so that at the end of the day, one, we limit disruption in the neighborhood. Two, at the end of the day, we have a nice revitalized neighborhood.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, city council comments. Anything anyone wants to bring up?
I do have one thing that I want to talk about. Brian, it looked like you had the PDF pulled up for the entrepreneurship thing. Yes. So a couple weeks ago, I attended the League of Municipalities City Vision Conference, and one of the talks they had was on this program. And I know when we did our retreat last year, we talked about bringing entrepreneurs here, and this seems like a wonderful opportunity for us to do that. So East Carolina University
There you go. I had to
is
teach you that.
partnering with the League of Municipalities to do this entrepreneurship program. So cities can apply and entrepreneurs would come to our community for a period of 2 years. And so how the cities apply is by offering the entrepreneurs something. So it could be a rent stipend, it could be office space, it could be membership at the chamber, it could be literally anything we can think of to make us compelling. And then they would place one of the students from their Miller School of Entrepreneurship in our community for 2 years to work on their business. So the students, the videos are not in this presentation. They're supposed to be sending them to us, but they did a couple interviews of some of the students and they were very impressive. And so I just think that this would be a great thing for us to pursue. I do think the dates are coming up quickly. It looks in this presentation that you have between May 15th and July 15th to apply, which I think might be something we can get done depending on what sort of goodies we wanted to offer them. But I would really like to see us try to pursue this. And I can send you guys this presentation so you can go through it all, but it's not as impactful when you're not listening to them talk to you.
Okay.
And this is an agreement they have with local governments.
Yes,
They'll
so you
support
have to be a League of Municipalities member in order to be in the program. And so they said they're going to have all the cities submit their applications and their portfolios is what they're calling them. And then the students will kind of rank them. And if we end up getting a student, then we also get a small grant to help support their coming here.
So if that person's a student, may I ask, and they're trying to be, or learn how to be an entrepreneur,
They're a graduate of the program.
so are they working for something? I mean, are they, is there a stipend coming from ECU to cover them while they're trying to develop their idea, or?
I don't think that ECU is giving them a stipend. It's just to get them to come here to develop their startup. So we would be offering them something. It can be
But they
anything.
need some type of financing to keep, to eat food at night. I mean,
They do.
we're not doing that.
Do they have something they're going to come here and already know that they're going to do? Or do they need
That was
a
my
job?
my understanding was that they were going to be coming here with a concept for a business
Okay.
to start their own business. They did mention that it would be good for them to have some sort of mentor from the community.
And our role in this is we provide them with, for lack of a better term, fringe benefits, like a place to set up shop and I guess things of that nature, membership with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
But they're trying to, do their thing.
And we're looking at one person, two people. I mean,
I think they just pair one student
One
in
to
one town. Yeah.
I'll admit, I do have one question that pops in my head, and I'm sorry, this is just a teacher coming out. Do we have any idea what they want to do? In other words, if they're our or kind of attached to us, it does seem like we might want to know what they're thinking about putting together.
Yes.
I don't know if that's part of the program.
So I do think that the goal was for them to match the students with appropriate cities.
Okay.
They're supposed to be sending out more information, but it seems like it's going to move quickly because time is just moving very fast this year. I wanted to bring it up to you all to see if it was something we might be interested in having us put a little proposal together. They even said that it doesn't have to be the best proposal we've ever put together, but I'm even happy to put it together if we want it to look fancy. But
I think it's an intriguing idea because it's in essence, a chance for a person to put their ideas into action immediately. I do think that if the city is involved, quite honestly, what they are doing is a little bit of an interest of mine. I mean, I guess there are some things that I'm like, fine if you want to do it, but not with the city providing, your fringe benefits for trying to do that.
Okay.
I guess.
These are all questions
So-
I can email them to you.
Okay, so you'll share this presentation with us so we can look through it and get a better idea maybe of what the program is about.
Yes, I'll go ahead and
Okay.
send them some of the questions that have come up
Okay.
before they get information out to us.
I think it sounds cool. I'm interested in more info, so.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested.
Thanks. I was pretty fired up whenever I saw the presentation.
All right,
Thank
very
you.
good, thank you. Anyone else have anything they'd like to mention?
I have a couple of things.
Oh, yes.
This Saturday is the Jump Off Rock Half Marathon and 10K. So if you are participating, good luck. And if you're not, if you're not participating, hey, it's roughly 7 miles downhill. So I could roll 7 miles. So that was like a goal. And then also just really great things happening downtown, and I'm super excited, and it should be a good weekend to also help support businesses. And then rolling into the business support, I know a couple of you have heard my ranting lately about the businesses in this area are really struggling with employment issues. The restaurants, if you haven't been around, there are signs everywhere. My restaurant owner friends are having to close down on holiday weekends because they don't have enough employees to run their restaurants. Other organizations beside restaurants are really struggling as well. I mean, just across the board. And I don't know how to fix the situation. I don't know what we could do to fix the situation, but I just want to put it out there that I am in support of anything that we could do or any advocacy that we could create. I'm, like I said, I don't have a solution. I've proposed solutions because if I was president, I would pay a stipend every week for people to actually be employed right now, as opposed to paying people to not work. But I'm just really concerned because I know people are struggling hard, and these businesses are not getting bailouts and they're not getting free checks sent to them. And so just, one, think about these people, and if there's ways that you could think to help, or if the public has ideas, I would support anything that we could do within our power or whatever to help these people. So that's all.
I can tell you that's a fact. We've had job openings and $13 to $15 an hour. You don't even get anybody come in. And if they do come in, they don't come back. And it's in all kind of positions. It's not, it's not just one thing. Recently in Hilton Head, they're experiencing the same thing. Restaurants are only open 3 to 4 days a week because they can't get them. So it is an issue. Try to hang in there local as often as you can. And let's remember too that what is it? It's the first weekend of closed streets, right? And on 7th, the market, farmers market there. Let's spread the word on that. It's going to be a great weekend. Let's hit them all hard.
All right, anything else? Not, Mr. Connick, do you have anything for us?
Yes, Mayor, about just a couple things. One, I've got good news and bad news. Good news is police department is moving along very well. Up until this past Monday, police chief reported Monday that they thought they would be in late July, August, start moving in and transitioning in and be fully in with an open house as of early October. However, Monday night, I believe, there was a severe storm in Georgia, Monday or Tuesday night, and there was a tornado. There was a tornado that destroyed the distribution facility where our elevator was being stored. And so at this point, we don't know how long it's going to take to replace the elevator. I know Brian, who's managing the project, is working with our construction company or a construction manager to figure out exactly what that means, how quickly. So there may be a slight delay or some type of delay as they rebuild the elevator that goes in that, because it's basically they build the elevator to fit the building. It's, so good news and bad news. So if we didn't have bad luck, we wouldn't have luck at all. So secondly, I put at your place, and I think the mayor's reviewed this, but has not given me her comments. But I wanted to put a draft. This is a letter to Senator Edwards regarding Senate Bill 349. The mayor and I had discussed doing just a simple resolution opposing the bill, but we felt like that's not always beneficial, that working with Senator Edwards, that if we gave him some suggestions on how we might want to improve the bill might be better received. So we've drafted this letter expressing our concerns with the bill as it relates to taking individual or local authority away from the city council, and some other concerns, but also some suggestions on how we might improve the bill. So if he wants to move the bill forward, this would be our recommendation. So want to be part of the solution and just not part of the problem. So I'll wait a day or so before I ask the mayor. Like I said, she may have edits that I haven't made yet. So, but I will probably send this early next week if anybody would like to add or make any changes regarding that. And finally, if the council will so indulge me, I think it's probably appropriate while you're together to talk about Mr. Robinson's concerns and the trash audit to understand how we got here and why we did what we did. So the backup in history, back 6 or 7 months ago, and I know John Buchanan is on Zoom and may can chime in here if there's any questions. But 6 or 7 months ago, or maybe even a year, we were looking at our solid waste budget, our environmental services budget, basically fund, and realized that it was losing money. So one of the first things we did before we came to council to ask you to raise rates was to look at making sure we were billing everybody correctly, that we were accounting for all of our expenditures, all our costs. And so we performed a trash audit, or trash can audit, and we went out and reviewed our systems and the number of cans at locations, making sure again that we were sending the proper bills. And what we discovered, I don't have an exact ratio. We discovered some billing errors as it relates to our billing software had dropped or not billed some customers. Just a computer glitch had not billed some customers appropriately, and that was as little as $28 to a little, minor amounts of money, but billing folks that wasn't billing them correctly. So that was part of the audit we found. We also identified locations where property owners or businesses had large number of trash cans that were not being billed. Those were mobile home parks, apartment complexes, tourism type facilities such as Mr. Robinson. In that particular case, they would have been billed for one can versus 7 or 8 or 9 cans. So, and there wasn't a lot of the average kind of bill for those kind of things were between 200, but we did have some that were close to $1,000 or over $1,000. So we identified those. We sent letters letting people know that they had not been billed correctly. During this whole time, they had been receiving the services. They had been receiving service as it relates to us picking up their garbage and their recycling. Now, so how that happened is we had been using the legacy system we had been using is, and John, you correct me, is that Public Works had been tracking the cans and they had simply been using a spreadsheet. People come and go, but using a spreadsheet to track cans. And that information was ultimately, when a can was replaced or added, basically they made a mark on the spreadsheet, and from time to time that spreadsheet would be sent to billing. Billing really had no interaction with Public Works to know when that happened or really have a good track record of why it happened. Did the resident request it? Did the property owner request it? There was no good track. So what we identified is, and what finance has identified is, that's just a legacy system that has been there for many, 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 many years. So as a part of rectifying that, we established the work order system where now to get cans, you have to put the work order in. You would contact billing, and billing would put the work order in and then send that to Public Works, so that we have a record of who got the cans and who requested them. Same thing as we have new property owners, as they come in, we will check with them the plan or the new program. If you sign up for utilities, we will say you're supposed to have these 2 cans. Is this what you want? The previous property owner had 3 cans. Do you want us to remove 1? So that being said, we're improving the system, continuous improvement. However, I put this information that we had the audit into a Hendersonville Herald in the last several months, just so you were aware of it. Councilman Miller contacted me and said, I understand that you're doing this. Before you send the large bills, please contact people by phone. I said, yes, sir. I will tell you today that that was not done. All we did, and I take responsibility to that and apologize for that. We did send letters. I'm not particularly pleased with how we delivered the message. I think that was a mistake again, and I'll take responsibility for that because Council Miller did specifically ask me to have staff contact these larger utility accounts where we were having excess. So I'll take responsibility for that. Also, it would be easy for us. I mean, Mr. Robinson did ask us to waive the fee. As human beings, we would love to do that. Mr. Buchanan had a conversation with the city attorney today, and there's some legal issues related to just waiving what we owe because they did obtain a service from the city. And as stewards of the public's money, there are some issues. I'll let Ms. Beaker address those in just one second. I will say that for the larger accounts, we have been offering a payment plan. We're not demanding the money all at one time. We do allow the money to be spread out, repayment over 12 months. So we have done that on several occasions, and we would offer that to anybody that was in this situation that owned large amounts of money. Your policy state law does allow us to back bill up to 3 years, is my understanding. You have adopted, also it allows the council to set standards for that. You have previously set a standard of only 2 years of back billing. So that is what we've done on this corrective bill. Excuse me, I used the wrong term. John's going to correct me. It's a corrective bill. So the law allows us to go back 3 years. However, we've only gone corrective bill for 2 years. So I'll stop there. And John, did I miss anything? I'll let John, and then we'll let Angie talk about the legal ramifications of waiving fees and those things.
No, you hit it all, John. I mean, there is a little bit more to it. So some of the issues were related to converting systems, and some of the other issues just related to, like John mentioned, how we used to track and make changes. We used to have multiple people making changes in the system, and we had no way to track what generated those changes or who called to request. And in most cases, who actually made the change. So we've made improvements, and we're putting procedures in place to address all of those issues. And, you know, as John mentioned, we're not happy with the way that we communicated it. I wish we would have done that a little bit better, that the letter that went out would have been a little bit more descriptive, as well as the bill that went out with it. But we're going to continue to work on those things, and hopefully we don't have to do this again. But if we do, we'll make sure we do a better job communicating it.
So just very, very briefly, the law says that you cannot discriminate among customers, and that to allow people to not pay simply because they were not billed would be a discriminatory billing practice. And so you have an obligation to collect those funds. You're not allowed to discount bills for, say, nonprofits or low to moderate income people. You can't do that because that would also be considered to be a discriminatory billing practice. And so I don't see any way legally that those bills, assuming they're correct, now, assuming they're correct, could be waived or discounted. So this very simply, that's the basis for what was done.
Is there somewhere where there has to be some sort of a willful or knowing part of the actual? So I got one of the letters and I thought the letter was horrible. It didn't explain why I was being back billed or what the bill was for. If we were following proper policy and procedure, then there wouldn't have been back billing. And then, I mean, my thing is, over $1,000 is a lot of money to like up and all of a sudden. And the bills aren't specific when you look at them. It doesn't say you have 2 trash cans. And there was a city employee that came into my office and said, you've been being billed for the wrong number of trash cans. He said, you are being billed for 2 trash cans. I said, well, I do have two trash cans. And he said, no, you don't. You have 1. I said, no, I have a red one or a green one and a blue one. And he said, well, that's only 1, which was confusing, which that's been explained to me now, but I don't know. It just seems like the communication on our part was not good. And the communication on the billing statements, like if you're line iteming the billing statements, it is not clear essentially what you're being billed for. It says trash. It doesn't say trash for how many trashes. And I just feel like if you truly don't understand, is it really your job to like critique your bill every month or analyze your bill? I mean, I'll happily pay my $28, but I just don't like how this, as a business owner, if we improperly billed a patient or something like that, that's on us. That's how I look at it. That is my mistake, and I'm going to eat that because I would never go back 2 years later and bill somebody like, I'm sorry, my staff screwed up 2 years ago and I forgot to bill you for a service. I'm not going to do that. And that's how I feel about it. So
What I'm hearing is we have state laws that say we can't.
Yeah, we
We
are you
can't
saying
go
state law
backwards.
says we can't do what a private business
Yeah,
owner
what
can do.
you and I both would do. mean,
I
it's-
understand that.
We do.
Right. And so in the case, it's a 1989 case that kind of set out the most recent ruling, but it dates back to the 40s, that even if it was due to negligence that the bills were not sent out, and which was counterclaimed in that case, it doesn't make a difference because it's public, it's a publicly owned asset, it's public funds, it's public. And so to not require everyone to pay their fair share, it's no reflection on the property owner. The property owner did nothing wrong. It's just a matter of fairness that everybody who gets the service has to pay the same. Everybody who gets the same level of service has to pay the same thing.
May I ask you, was that case in relation to a tax bill or was this in relation to an actual utility?
It was a utility.
Because I feel like with a tax bill or something like that, you actually get a yearly letter from the tax office that you have the right or the ability to verify the information. And if the information is incorrect, then you can submit the correction to make sure that you're being billed properly. Whereas with a utility bill, you don't really have that ability.
Well, you do and you don't, I guess. And anybody can call and question their bill. I got a letter from a local attorney this week that was put in my box, I guess, because it was from an attorney questioning a bill. It was a water bill to 3 properties. And so you do have the ability, I guess people just don't think about it maybe, or just assume it's correct. I can't explain that part of it, but while, you'd like to be able to make those concessions as a private business would, we just can't.
And Councilmember Hensley, I will say the confusion regarding the cans, we had that exact same conversation. We came together as a group on Monday after you and I had spoken to make sure we knew what we were talking about. We had the same nomenclature. The folks in operations knew when they said number of cans, the folks in billing. We've even we're now going to have pictures saying and it sounds simplistic, but when we say cans, it's a blue can and it's a green can. And there was some, you know, because when people change hands in customer or leave and come in customer service, so we've identified a system and started to identify also the size of the cans, so that it's very clear, and we're going to make improvements as it relates to that. We're even looking at possibly in the future using RFID tags so that when we give you a can, we can scan that can to make sure it's at that location and make sure we have correct inventory and that we do regular checks. So the system we're trying to make improvements of the system. I'm absolutely, again, not happy with how we got to this point. I'll take responsibility. That's what you pay me to do, expect to make it right. And so I will do that. But I just felt like it was important. This is having enough discussion among our community that you needed to hear from staff regarding it.
Could
Let's
we
bend over
itemize?
backwards to work with them and paying it back. You know, if it's even more than a year that's required, I'd like to see us offer that if it's necessary. Because what was it, 2 years? That's what we've gone back on.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
So it's unfortunate.
They be
but
allowed 2 years to pay that back
Mhm.
That's what I'm
in
thinking. If
installments?
it's 2 years coming in, 2
Is that a
years. coming
violation
out.
of a rule?
No, sir, as long as everybody's offered the same thing.
Right, I know, I get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know.
And that's for the part that they owed but didn't know.
Yeah. So
That's something we could.
if that's the wishes of council, absolutely. And we would restrict that strictly to our trash audit, obviously, just for this particular situation, and give those folks that option to pay to get current over a 2-year period.
And do explain to them, we have no choice in this.
Yes, sir.
That's where we know that if we do an audit in the future of something else that might be like this, we have to be ready. This is what comes out of an audit. Because if
Yes,
we
sir.
hadn't audited, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, I would argue that you have a duty to audit periodically to make sure everybody is paying their fair share, and so that,
And that people aren't being overbilled.
and that it works. And we did, I
Both ways.
understand.
We had situations too. We're talking about this side, but we did have situations where people received bills and they were being overbilled because the neighbor's can was on their property. And as we did the audit, you know, we saw an extra can and it actually belonged to the neighbor, and we have adjusted that and fixed that, and those kind of things.
We refund money to them?
John, I don't know that we ever, was that just a billing, or that's when we sent the corrective bill and we adjusted that? Do you remember?
Yeah, that one was specifically related to the trash audit. But we have had in the past, customers that were misbilled that we've refunded money to for everything that we were able to identify that they were overbilled. So it does go both ways.
And
Is the onus on the customer to ask to be refunded, or do we realize it and we go ahead and refund it to them?
Oh, if we identify it, we absolutely refund it without being asked. We had a situation that a customer was, he paid sewer. It was a rental property, and the tenant paid sewer for a couple of years, and the owner came in to pay for a sewer tap. And it was at that time we realized that, we had been billing the tenant for the entire time that he was in there, and we paid him back for every bit of it.
it does work both ways. And your current policy says that we would, or your ordinance will refund for 2 years. Also, anything above $5, we did cap it at anything, but not refund anything. But we're going to look at that from Ms. Speaker doesn't like that. So
I don't like that. I'll just tell you, I don't.
So we're going to look at that. So we discovered that as we were reviewing everything today. So
Can I ask another question along those lines? Back when we redid the water meters, we found all kind of crazy things. Like people had no meter. They would just get water, right?
Yes.
And we didn't go back and build them anything, did we? I mean, I know we didn't have a meter to say you use this much water, but we definitely found people that were getting water that were not paying for it. And I don't think we did the same thing for them, but maybe that's because there's no way to know how to build it.
Out. Yeah.
I mean, because we don't know how much water they used. We just know they were getting free water. But in that circumstance, how is that different than this?
How long ago was that?
How long ago is the water hog or aqua hog system?
This is before I came on.
Yeah, so
That was what we found out in that process. We're like, oh, some people don't even have a meter at all.
council members, being that was probably 9 or 10 years ago, and pre-current staff, I can't explain why.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Right before your time, but I know that happened.
Yeah.
We discovered people that were just getting water and they just like, well, I just thought that's was the way it was.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to open a can of worms, but that's immediately what I thought about this guy was like, there were people getting a benefit that they were like, oh, well, there's no meter here, or the meter doesn't work or whatever. Right. Okay. Look at the egos unpunished.
I just wanted us to take responsibility before the council.
But so we're going to look at finding a way to not prorate, but
Yes, sir. We
the
the direction I got from council is, Madam Attorney, if we would probably be best to have somebody make a motion and to establish that related to this, so it's in the minutes. Would you think that would be appropriate?
Sure.
That way it's on the record and the public knows that you took action to try to improve the situation.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjust the payback option up to 2 years for unbilled water.
Unbilled
Trash.
Unbilled trash. Yeah, I'm sorry. We got too many. Jerry, that's your fault. Unbilled trash discovered from the audit.
Okay, is there any discussion? Not those in favor of the motion to allow for 2 years for repayment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Okay, it can be on the record then.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Conant?
No, ma'am, I think I've done enough.
Okay, boards and commission appointments. You have anything you want to mention, Ms. Reese, or go in?
Madam Clerk, members of the city, I presented to you 6 applications you have received for the ABC board. You have 2 vacancies on that board. One is a 3-year term that will end in 2020. The other vacancy is an unexpired term that will expire in June of 2020. For who signed that term. You also have a selection and appointment of the chairman of that board.
Thank you. 6 applicants: Marcia Kane, who is currently serving, Charles McGrady, Truett Culbert, David Rutecki, Matthew Broadway, and Joyce Gibbons. Would anyone like to make a nomination for the 3-year term expiring June 30th of 2024?
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Mrs. Kane.
All right. Marcia Kane has been nominated. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of appointing Marcia Kane to reappointing Marcia Kane to a 3-year term on the ABC board, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and Ms. Kane has been reappointed. We have an unexpired term expiring June 30th of 2022. Is there anyone who would like to make a nomination to this term?
Okay, Madam Mayor, I nominate Chuck McGrady.
Okay. Chuck McGrady has been nominated for an unexpired term on the ABC board. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of appointing Chuck McGrady to the ABC board, say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Mr. McGrady has been appointed. We now need to appoint a board chair. Ms. Kane has been serving as the interim chair. Would someone like to make an appointment for chair of the ABC board?
Madam Mayor, oh yes, I'd like to nominate Marcia King.
Marcy Kane has been nominated for chair of the ABC board. Are there further nominations? None. Those in favor of Marcy Kane as chair of the ABC board, say aye.
Aye.
As opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and Marcy has been appointed to a full term as chair. Okay. That is our last item of business. We don't have any closed session. So we are adjourned.